I drove nearly 3 hours to reach my lakeside retreat, the one sanctuary that still held a whisper of calm since my wife's passing. At 62, I'd learned to savor the quiet of that place, where the world felt softer. But as I stepped onto the porch, my heart stopped. My daughter Marisol was sprawled in my favorite chair, her husband and his parents lounging beside her, sipping drinks like they'd claimed the place. She met my gaze and said, "You can't be here anymore." "This belongs to them now," I offered a faint smile, but inside I was already planning a day they'd never forget. My grip tightened on the strap of my duffel bag, the leather creaking under my fingers. The evening light cast a warm amber glow across the lake, the same lake where Sophia and I used to sit, watching the water's surface dance until night fell. That memory faded under the scene before me. Marisol leaned back, one leg crossed over the other, her posture almost too relaxed, like she'd rehearsed it. Her husband, Javier, sat close, his hair neatly combed, holding his glass with a casual confidence. His parents, Esteban, with his slicked-back gray hair, and Luciana, with a smug, polished smile, looked far too settled. Esteban gave me a curt nod, the kind you'd toss to a delivery driver. "Excuse me?" My voice was even, almost soft. I've always sounded calm when I'm choosing which side of me to reveal, the diplomat or the destroyer. "You heard me, Papa," Marisol said, not a trace of doubt in her tone. "We're here for the weekend." And by we, I mean Javier's parents too. They're making this their home now. I glanced past her into the living room. Sophia's hand-woven blanket hung over the couch's arm, the one we'd chosen together years ago. On the coffee table, my handmade cedar coasters sat unused, Luciana's glass leaving a faint ring on the bare wood. "Since when?" I asked, my words deliberate. "Does my property become someone else's without my say?" Javier set his glass down. "Since we agreed it's more practical this way." "They need a place, Diego. You barely come here. It's wasteful to let it go unused. Unused." The word lingered, sharp in the air. I'd been here just last month, refinishing the deck. The month before, I'd fixed the porch light. But that didn't matter to them. This wasn't about reason. It was about power. Esteban chimed in, his tone dripping with fake warmth. "We appreciate your kindness, Diego. We'll look after it well." I didn't respond. My eyes stayed locked on Marisol. "Anat, and you thought you'd just declare this while sitting in my chair?" Marisol's lips quirked, not quite a smirk. "Better to be up front." There was a time, not long ago, when a single glance from me would have made her rethink her words. Now, she didn't waver. Somewhere between her university days and this moment, she'd decided she called the shots. I stepped onto the porch. No one budged. "I drove 3 hours to be here," I said, voice still steady. "I'd like to come inside." "Not tonight," Marisol replied. "We've got plans for dinner." "You'd be in the way, I repeated, my gaze sweeping over them. Luciana adjusted her scarf, settling in like she was watching a show. Javier gave Marisol a quick glance, a faint grin tugging at his mouth. Esteban refilled his glass. "Fine," I said, the words sharp and cold. "Enjoy your night." I turned, walked down the steps, and crossed the gravel to my car. Marisol's laugh, mixed with Luciana's chatter about the drink's vintage, trailed after me until I closed the door. The engine purred to life, reliable as ever. I backed out slowly, catching one last glimpse of them on the porch. Marisol didn't look my way. She was already deep in conversation, erasing me from the scene. The road from Lago Sereno winds through pines that always carry a hint of rain, even in the dry season. Sophia loved that scent. We'd drive these roads with the windows down, her hair tangling in the breeze as she hummed to the radio. My hands tightened on the wheel. My daughter had just told me I wasn't welcome in the one place that still felt like Sophia's. The worst part wasn't the boldness. It was how effortless it seemed for her. No pause, no guilt. By the time I hit the highway, the stars were out, and the air had cooled. My phone vibrated on the seat beside me. I ignored it. I needed the quiet. When I pulled into my driveway in Tucson, the dashboard clock glowed 10:27 p.m. The house was dark, save for the porch light I kept on out of habit. Sophia's rule: a home should never feel unwelcoming. Inside, I dropped my bag in the hall and stood there, keys dangling in my hand. The silence felt heavier tonight, not soothing, but hollow. In the kitchen, I brewed coffee, more for the ritual than the need. I carried it to my study, sank into the worn leather chair that knew my shape, and stared at the photo of Sophia on the shelf, a moment captured at the lake, her hair glowing in the sunset. The phone buzzed again, a text from Marisol. Just so you know, we've decided the lake house is theirs for good. Don't come back. No reasoning, no discussion, just a line drawn over what wasn't hers to give. I read it twice, set the phone down, and stared at the dark window. For 4 years since Sophia's death, I'd been the yielding father, saying yes to every ask, sending money without question. $5,000 here, $10,000 there, showing up when needed, fading when not. I thought it kept me tethered to my only child, to some piece of the family Sophia held dear. But families don't claim your home and shut you out. They don't erase your name from your own doorstep. I took a slow sip of coffee. Beneath the sting of betrayal, something solid began to form. Not rage, not yet. Something sharper. I'd spent my life in construction, learning how to build strong foundations and how to unravel them without anyone noticing until it's too late. Sitting there in the dim light, I realized Marisol had just set a timer she didn't know was ticking. They were settled in now, probably planning to stay as long as they thought they could get away with it. I glanced at Sophia's photo again, her smile carrying that knowing glint, like she was in on a secret I hadn't cracked yet. "You'd want me to do this my way, wouldn't you?" I murmured. Outside, the street was still, the Tucson night quiet. Inside, I set the coffee mug down, grabbed a notepad, and scrawled one line. They'll never forget this day. It wasn't a promise born of anger. It was a plan, precise as any I'd drafted in my career. In my world, plans get built. The phone rang just past 7 p.m. the next evening. I was in the kitchen, scrubbing a plate from the quick dinner I'd thrown together. My hands were still damp when I picked up, tucking the phone against my shoulder. "Papa," Marisol's voice came through, sharp and matter-of-fact, the tone of someone who'd already decided the conversation's outcome. "Marisol," I replied, keeping my voice steady, unreadable. "Listen," she said. "Javier and I talked. The lake house is going to be his parents now. Esteban and Luciana are moving in for good." My hand stilled under the faucet's stream. "Say that again." "You heard me," she said, her words as calm as if she were reading off a grocery list. "It's the practical choice. They need a real home, and you hardly use it." I turned off the tap. The kitchen went quiet, save for the low hum of the fridge. "You don't own the lake house, Marisol," I said. "You can't give it away." "I can when it's what's best," she shot back. "For everyone." I let out a short, dry laugh. "Best for who?" "For all of us," she said without hesitation. "They've been struggling, Papa. You've got more space than you need. You're, older now, on your own. You're not hosting parties up there every weekend. Older now, on your own." The words hung there, meant to cut. 4 years ago, after Sophia's death, they might have shattered me. I'd have stumbled over myself, offering compromises to keep the peace, to keep her close. Terrified that losing her favor meant losing Sophia again. But this time, the way she said it, like my life was already half over, penciled in as irrelevant, did something else. It sharpened a piece of me I'd kept dull for too long. "Marisol," I said, slow and deliberate. "I worked 35 years for that property, built the business that paid for every plank, every nail, every inch of that place. Your mother and I together." "That's what parents do," she cut in. "Provide. Make sure their family's set. I provided for you," I said, my voice edging harder. "Not your in-laws." "I barely know them. They're family now," she insisted. "No," I said, sharp enough to slice through her momentum. "They're Javier's family." A beat of silence crackled on the line. "You're being selfish, Papa," she said finally. I laughed again, low and incredulous. "Selfish? That's rich." "I'm serious," she pressed. "We've done so much for you since Mama died." My grip tightened on the phone, knuckles paling. "Everything you've done for me? You mean the wedding I paid for? The car I bought when yours broke down? The tuition loans I covered? Or maybe the down payment for that fancy condo?" "That's just what parents do," she repeated, like it was a rehearsed line. "And what daughters don't do," I said, "is steal from their fathers." Her tone hardened. "You're barely there anymore. What's the point of it sitting empty?" "It's not empty," I said. "I'm there when I choose to be." "You're holding on to a house, Papa. It's not healthy. Mama wouldn't." The air in the room shifted, heavy. "Don't," I said, each word a separate blade. "Don't speak for your mother." A longer pause this time. "You can't say no to this," she said at last, like it was a done deal. "Yes, I can." "You think you can stop it?" "They're moving in next Saturday. It's happening." "No," I said again, calm and final. Her voice tipped toward anger. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Papa. You'll only embarrass yourself." For years, I dodged embarrassing myself in front of Marisol. Kept my tone even, my demands small, my checkbook open. But in that moment, I felt a strange clarity, realizing the embarrassment was hers, not mine. "We're done here," I said. "You're not the one calling the shots," she snapped. "Not anymore." "Fight this, and you'll lose. We'll take it anyway." There was a time I'd have tried to reason, to find some middle ground. But I'd spent decades in construction deals, and I knew when the other side wasn't negotiating. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just ended the call. For the first time, I hung up first. The phone sat on the counter, screen dark, my reflection faint in its glass. My pulse was steady, my breathing calm. That small act, cutting the call, felt like the first step in a game I'd avoided playing for too long. I finished rinsing the plate, dried my hands, and stood in the doorway. The house's quiet didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt alive, electric. Two things were clear now. Marisol had crossed a line that couldn't be undone, and I was ready to act. I didn't sleep that night. I went through the routine, showered, brushed my teeth, skimmed the local paper's sports page, but when I lay down at 10:30, my mind was racing. The ceiling might as well have been a project board. Monday, April 21st. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Saturday, April 26th. Dates lined up like steps on a timeline. 35 years in construction had taught me to think in phases, to know my deadlines, and most importantly, to read the other side. Marisol had handed me one. They're moving in next Saturday. That wasn't a vague idea. It was a target, and a target could be hit from many angles. I rolled onto my side, staring at the empty space where Sophia used to sleep. She'd hated rushing, but loved being prepared. "Measure twice, cut once," she'd say when we tackled home projects together. My thoughts began to organize, taking shape like a plan. This wasn't just about holding on to the lake house. It was about showing Marisol, Javier, and his entitled parents that I wasn't a man you could push aside like an old chair. For 4 years after Sophia's death, I'd been exactly that. Moved wherever they wanted, agreeing to every request, convincing myself it was the only way to keep family close. The pattern was painfully obvious now. 6 months after Sophia's passing, Marisol called about her car. "It's falling apart, Papa. Javier needs something dependable for his commute." That became $18,000 for a new sedan, bought and delivered in days. A year later, it was their loft. "The market's crazy, Papa." "We need to act fast." I sent $12,000 for the deposit without even visiting the place. Then came the small loan for furniture, which ballooned to $7,500. Every time I told myself Sophia would have wanted me to help. Every time, the gratitude shrank while the demands grew. And now, here we were. By 1 a.m., sleep was a lost cause. I slipped out of bed, barefoot, and brewed a pot of strong black coffee. At the kitchen table, I grabbed a legal pad and wrote one word at the top: strategies. Below it, legal defense. Victor Pena. Lock changes, too aggressive, too soon. Surveillance systems, psychological tactics. Public exposure, high risk. I studied the list. Legal defense was the foundation. Victor Pena, my attorney for 25 years, had navigated my toughest contracts, shielded my business from 2 baseless lawsuits, and once convinced a county board to overturn a ruling that could have cost me $750,000. Changing the locks would tip my hand too early. If Marisol sensed panic, she'd push harder. Surveillance, though, that had potential. Not just to monitor, but to shape the environment. Psychological tactics. That one brought a faint grin. I'd used subtle pressure in business before, nudging competitors to back off while thinking it was their choice. I scratched out strategies and wrote leverage. That's what this was about. Rule 1. Never negotiate from weakness. Rule 2. Control the narrative. Rule 3. Dictate the timeline. I could almost hear Sophia's voice. "You're building something, aren't you, Diego?" By 3 a.m., I had a framework. Phase 1. Meet Victor. Lock down the legal fortress before Marisol even suspects it's there. Phase 2. Rig Lago Sereno with a system to make it unbearable for anyone who didn't belong. Phase 3. Let Marisol walk into the trap. timed perfectly to the deadline she'd so confidently set. At 7:15, sunlight crept through the blinds. I showered, shaved, and pulled on the charcoal blazer I used for client pitches back in the day. Not for Victor, but for me. You dress for the fight you're walking into. By 9 o'clock, I was in Victor Pena's downtown office. He stood as I entered, his handshake as solid as ever. "Diego, good to see you," he said. "Wish it was under better circumstances," I replied, sinking into the chair across his desk. "Family issue. Property dispute." His brows rose slightly. "Commercial or residential?" "Residential. Lago Sereno." "That's in your name." "Bought it outright 15 years ago." He leaned back. "Who's claiming it?" "My daughter." Victor didn't blink, but his pen hesitated over the notepad. "Family cases get ugly." "I want it clean," I said. "Ironclad." We ran through the essentials: title deed, purchase records, my will. Victor laid out the plan: review the deed, consider a trust for extra protection, document any coercion or threats. "How fast can we move?" I asked. "Basic review, a couple days. Stronger safeguards, 1 to 2 weeks. Too slow," I said. "They're moving in next Saturday." He nodded. "Then we start today. Get me every document on that property by tomorrow morning. And Diego, record everything. Texts, calls, conversations, dates, times, exact words. I left his office with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Outside, Tucson's sky was a sharp, unyielding blue. Halfway to my car, my phone buzzed. "Marisol." Against my instincts, I answered. "Papa, we need to end this foolishness," she said, her tone clipped. "Javier's parents are set to move in next Saturday." "Don't make it difficult." I slid into the driver's seat. The only foolishness is you thinking you can give away my property." "It's not foolish," she snapped. "They're already packing." "That's their mistake," I said. "They'll need to unpack." "You're making this messy." "You made it messy," I countered. She sighed, like I was a client rejecting a fair deal. "Esteban's been out of work for 2 months. Luciana's on disability. They need this place more than you." "Not my burden," I said. "It's called family, Papa. Like the family you showed when you told me to leave my own porch?" Silence, then colder. "They're coming Saturday, with or without your approval." She hung up. I sat there, staring through the windshield. Saturday. 5 days. 5 days to turn my lake house into a place they'd never want to step foot in again. Wednesday morning brought a stark, shadowless light. I was at my desk by 6:30, papers in orderly stacks. The lake house deed, tax records, insurance forms. Victor would have them today. But legal walls weren't enough. Marisol had made it clear. She didn't fear consequences she couldn't see. She thought persistence would break me, like it always had. I needed to shift the battlefield. Sipping coffee, I glanced at Sophia's photo on my desk. Her laugh frozen in time. Hair caught in the breeze off Lago Sereno. It wasn't just comfort anymore. It was a reminder of what I was defending. By 8:15, I was walking 2 houses down to a low-slung adobe home with a mailbox marked Ramos. Luis Ramos, 48, single, was the kind of neighbor who could rig a smart home system faster than most people could set up a Wi-Fi router. We'd bonded 3 winters ago when a storm knocked out his power, and I'd lent him my generator, no questions asked. He never forgot it. He answered the door in cargo shorts and a worn tech conference tee. glasses foggy from late-night coding. "Diego," he said, stepping aside. "Everything okay?" "Depends on your definition," I said, stepping into his cluttered office. Monitors glowing, cables snaking across shelves, a chaos of tech I couldn't parse. He motioned to a chair, and I sat. "Yeah, I need help with a project." His eyes narrowed, sizing me up. "What kind?" "Motion sensors, lights, sound, maybe visuals, triggered automatically when someone enters a space." Luis leaned back, a grin creeping in. "Like a haunted house?" "Close," I said, "but the goal's not fun. It's to make people leave and never come back." He chuckled, low and intrigued. "Now you've got me curious. Who are we running off?" I shook my head. "Oh, better you don't know the full story," I said. "Let's just say some folks think they can claim a place that's not theirs." "I want them to remember this visit." Luis studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I can make it memorable." We spent the next hour mapping out the setup. Motion sensors in every key room, wired to trigger disorienting light patterns. Unsettling but safe. Hidden speakers in vents and behind furniture, primed to play faint sounds. Footsteps in empty corridors. Doors creaking. Murmurs just shy of intelligible. Tiny projectors to cast fleeting shadows on walls, and a remote control system I could manage from my phone. "Can we add water triggers?" I asked. "Faucets, shower, all at once?" Luis grinned. "Easy. I'll tap into the smart plumbing controls. It's all legal. Standard home automation, just creatively applied." By 10:30, his truck was loaded with gear. Palm-sized sensors, rolls of LED strips, compact projectors, and a tablet with the control app. He moved like a kid unleashed in a toy store. The drive to Lago Sereno took just over 3 hours. My eyes stayed on the road, but my mind traced the lake house layout. Foyer, living room, kitchen, 4 upstairs bedrooms, Sophia's untouched craft room. Every space would play a role. When we arrived, Luis let out a low whistle. "Sweet spot," he said. "It's mine," I replied, voice flat, "and I'm keeping it." Inside, the air held the faint pine scent of the polish I'd used last month. It felt wrong without Sophia. But today, that wrongness fueled purpose. We began in the foyer. Luis mounted a motion sensor above the door, syncing it to the tablet. "When this trips," he explained, "the living room lights pulse, sharp colors, disorienting." The voice assistant kicks in with a warning. "What kind?" I asked. He tapped the tablet, and a stern voice filled the space. "Attention! You are not authorized to be here. Leave now." A flicker of satisfaction hit me. Good. We moved through the house. Upstairs, Luis set projectors to cast tall, shifting shadows, figures that seemed to glide when you weren't looking. In the kitchen, he rigged the faucets to surge on command, water roaring like a storm. Speakers went into corners, tucked behind shelves and chairs, ready to hum with random creaks, soft steps, and whispers that layered into a nagging unease. "It's all on a closed network," Luis said, securing cables behind a baseboard. "No Wi-Fi dependency. They can't just unplug it." "Backup power?" I asked. He smirked. "Got it. Hidden batteries in the cellar. Good for days if they cut the breaker." By late afternoon, the lake house was a stage set for chaos, yet nothing looked out of place. That was the genius. Normalcy masking a trap. The living room was still inviting, but ready to erupt in light and sound. The hallway stood silent until it wasn't. We tested the system. Strobes pulsed in a jarring rhythm. The voice assistant escalated warnings. Faucets roared after 20 seconds of movement. Whispers grew insistent. "This'll do it," Luis said, checking the tablet as sensors lit up. "It has to," I replied. I stood in the foyer, gazing out at the lake. The sun dipped behind the pines, painting the water gold. Sophia called this hour El Suspiro, the moment the world seemed to pause. I locked the door, set the system to standby, and pictured it. Marisol unlocking the door with borrowed swagger, Javier and his parents trailing her, stepping into a house they thought they'd claimed. The house would answer back. The game was shifting. Thursday morning, Luis was at my door before 7, balancing a crate of gear and a projector under one arm. "Couldn't sleep," he said, stepping inside. "Got ideas to make this sharper." His ideas were never small. His truck held 2 heavy-duty backup batteries, micro speakers the size of coins, and something he called directional audio modules. "Like a laser for sound," he explained as we drove to Lago Sereno. "Only the person in the target spot hears it. Everyone else?" Nothing I imagined Javier in the hallway. Hearing a whisper meant just for him, while Marisol and her parents stood clueless. Perfect. The lake house looked untouched from 2 days ago. Luis's work, invisible but lethal. We started with projectors, mounting one on the upstairs landing to cast a faint, pacing shadow down the hall. Even knowing it was fake, it made my skin prickle. "Picture this at midnight after a drink or two," Luis said. We added projectors in the guest rooms, set to flicker just enough to catch a glance. Then the directional audio. Luis hid one in the foyer's crown molding. I stepped onto the mat, and a low voice hissed, "You don't belong here." Step aside, it vanished. Step back, it returned. "That'll crawl into their heads," Luis said. By noon, the house was fully wired. Lights still strobed on motion. Faucets roared after 20 seconds. But now shadows danced, and whispers targeted individuals. In the cellar, Luis stashed one battery behind paneling near the breaker, another under the stairs. "These'll keep it running a week if they cut power," he said. "Good luck finding them without gutting the place." I stood at the cellar steps, peering into the dim space. Sophia always said it felt like trouble waiting to happen. Today, it was the heart of my counterstrike. By 1 p.m., we ran a full test. In the foyer, the sensor tripped. Lights flared in jagged bursts, and the voice assistant barked its warning. Luis stepped into the living room, and the system escalated. Shadows flickered, whispers layered, water surged. "They won't last 10 minutes, he said, grinning. I nodded, but my mind was already on Saturday. On Marisol's smug confidence meeting a house that fought back. Water surged in the kitchen sink. Shadows danced across the far wall, and a whisper trailed Luis like a ghost. Upstairs, the landing projector cast its pacing figure, while bedroom speakers hummed with a slow, uneven tapping, soft but persistent, the kind of sound you'd swear was real until you checked and found nothing. The timing was seamless, each element layering onto the next, resetting after a few minutes of stillness, primed to strike again. "This," Luis said, grinning as we stood in the now silent lake house, "is a work of art." "It's a weapon," I corrected, though part of me admired the craft. We sat on the porch steps, eating tortas I'd brought from home, the lake stretching out before us, calm and glassy. The house looked like it always had, my refuge, my anchor. No one would guess it was now rigged to fight back. Luis wiped his hands and glanced at me. You know, Diego, there's something poetic about a house that bites. I thought of Sophia, her insistence that this place be a haven. She wouldn't have liked the idea of a bite, but she'd have understood defending what's ours. By late afternoon, the system was fully armed. The control tablet synced to my phone. I could monitor the lake house from anywhere. Live feeds, trigger sequences, adjust timings on the fly. Standing in the doorway before we left, I scanned the space. The furniture sat as it always had. The rug aligned, curtains draped just right. Nothing hinted at the tripwires woven into every corner. Back in Tucson that night, I sat in my study, the tablet glowing beside me. Camera feeds showed the foyer, living room, kitchen, upstairs hall. All still, all waiting. My phone buzzed at 9:12 p.m. A text from Marisol. We'll be there around 3 p.m. Saturday. Don't bother showing up. I stared at the screen, a faint smile tugging my lips. Precise timing, her final gift to me. 3 o'clock Saturday. They'd arrive bold, entitled, thinking I was miles away. The house, my house, would be ready to greet them. I closed the message without replying, leaned back, and let the quiet settle. In construction, the real power lies in the moment before the first strike, when the force is still coiled, the change unseen. Saturday, that strike would hit. Saturday, April 26th, Q system, 2:45 p.m. The foyer camera feed was calm, the lake behind it shimmering like polished turquoise. I sat in my Tucson study, 180 miles away, the control tablet propped before me, phone at its side. Every system in the lake house was primed. Sensors alert, audio cued, projections loaded, water controls poised. At 3:03 p.m., a black SUV rolled into the driveway feed. Marisol was at the wheel, Javier in the passenger seat, his sunglasses pushed into his hair. Esteban and Luciana sat in the back, leaning forward like they were already claiming the view. They didn't linger to admire the lake. The SUV stopped, doors swung open, and they poured out with the confidence of people who thought they'd already won. Marisol circled to the rear, opened the hatch, and started unloading bags. Javier gestured toward the porch like a director staging a scene. Esteban hauled a heavy suitcase, while Luciana clutched a large woven bag, the kind meant for long stays. The camera's mic picked up the crunch of gravel under their feet and a faint bird call over the water. As they reached the porch steps, Esteban spotted the sign. Luis's work, a sleek aluminum plate on a cedar mount, etched with bold letters. Welcome to the house of tomorrow. Enter at your own risk. Luciana froze, her grip tightening on her bag. What's this supposed to mean? Esteban squinted at it. Some kind of prank. Javier chuckled. Just Papa being dramatic. He does this kind of thing. Ignore it. Marisol didn't glance at the sign. Let's get inside, she said, brushing past. Luciana hesitated. I'm not walking past that. It's absurd. Makes the place feel off. She reached up, yanked the sign's bracket, and the screws tore free with a sharp squeak. The plate clattered to the porch. She kicked it aside. You're there, she said, dusting her hands. First thing to fix. I watched the sign settle, sunlight glinting off its edge. They climbed the steps. Marisol leading, Javier close behind, Esteban with his suitcase, Luciana trailing with a smug grin, as if she'd already made the place hers. Marisol pulled a key from her pocket. my key, copied from the spare I'd given her years ago, and slid it into the lock. The door opened smoothly. "Welcome home, Triad," she said over her shoulder, and they stepped inside. From my desk, I switched the tablet to the living room feed. They moved into frame, crossing the rug Sophia and I picked out in Taos. Luciana's voice came through the mic. "This is even better than I pictured." Esteban set his suitcase by the stairs. "Feels like it's already ours." Javier headed for the kitchen. "Let's sort out dinner." "I'm starving." Marisol stood in the living room's center, hands on hips, scanning the space like she'd just signed the deed. That same ease in her stance I'd seen when she was younger, when she knew her parents would clean up her messes. I let them wander for the next hour. Esteban poked around upstairs. Luciana fussed with the throw pillows. Javier poured wine from a bottle in their luggage. Marisol adjusted the thermostat. The tablet pinged each time they crossed a sensor, but I held off triggering anything. Let them settle in. Let them think they'd won. Not yet. Let them settle deeper. By 9:15 p.m. that evening, the sun had sunk over Lago Sereno, the lake now a dark mirror. The upstairs hall camera showed Esteban in sweatpants, heading to the guest room. Luciana was already in bed, flipping through a magazine. Javier was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. Marisol lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone with the smug ease of someone who thought the day was hers. I waited until the tablet's sound profile showed near silence. 10:47 p.m. From my Tucson study, I leaned forward and tapped the tablet's main control. Initiate full sequence. The system sprang to life instantly. Lights in every room began flashing. Sharp, jarring bursts of red, green, and white. Not a dance club's rhythm, but a disorienting assault. Upstairs, projectors cast pacing shadows across the hall. Downstairs, speakers hummed just above a whisper. "You don't belong here. You don't belong here." The kitchen faucet erupted, water hammering the sink. Upstairs, the shower heads roared, steam clouding the landing. The hall camera caught Esteban stumbling out, hand shielding his eyes. "Lucy!" "What's happening?" Luciana's voice came shrill from the guest room. "Why, Esteban! There's someone in here!" Javier appeared on the living room feed, head snapping side to side as shadows slid along the walls. "Marisol, did you mess with something?" Marisol shot up. "No. Maybe a glitch." Her words cut off as the voice assistant boomed. "Attention. Unauthorized occupants detected. Vacate immediately." The directional audio in the foyer hit Marisol alone as she stepped forward. "Get out." She spun, searching for the source, while Javier and his parents rushed to the kitchen, fumbling with the faucet handles. The kitchen camera showed Javier twisting knobs, but the water kept surging. Esteban yanked open a cabinet, as if that would help. Luciana gripped the doorway, staring at a shadow creeping across the ceiling. Upstairs, the guest room projector flickered, casting a silhouette that seemed to lean in the doorway. Luciana's scream sliced through the chaos. "Marisol!" she yelled. "Oh! Call someone!" Marisol was already grabbing her phone, but even if she got through, I knew what they'd find. A smart home system, fully legal, just malfunctioning. The hall feed showed Esteban pulling Luciana toward the stairs. "We're out of here." Javier's voice overlapped. "The door's stuck." A 20-second smart lock delay, just enough to make them feel trapped. Marisol tugged at the handle, her shoulders tense. When the lock finally clicked, they spilled onto the porch, blinking into the night. No one spared a glance at the sign Luciana had ripped down. They were in the SUV, reversing down the gravel in under 60 seconds. The camera tracked their taillights until the trees swallowed them. The lake house fell silent again. I leaned back, hands resting on the chair's arms. The sequence had been flawless. Not a single gap for them to rewrite the story. Marisol thought she'd claimed her prize. Instead, she'd walked into mine. The camera feeds still glowed on my desk when my phone rang at 8:06 a.m. Sunday. Marisol's name lit the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. "Morning, Heike," I said, voice warm but guarded, giving nothing away. "What did you do, Papa?" Her words came fast, brittle, fueled by sleeplessness and fury. "What do you mean?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Don't act clueless," she snapped, voice pitching high. "The house went insane last night. Lights flashing, water everywhere, voices telling us to leave. Esteban and Luciana are a mess. Luciana was sobbing for hours. Esteban swears he saw something." I glanced at the tablet, the living room feed bathed in soft morning light. "That sounds awful," I said, letting a touch of concern color my words. "Did you call anyone?" "We called the sheriff," she said, venom in every word. "They showed up at 7, checked the place, said it's just a glitchy system." "Well, that's good news," I said lightly. "Good news?" Her voice spiked. "We didn't sleep for 6 hours. Esteban nearly had a panic attack." "It's Esteban," I corrected absently. "I don't care about his name right now." I let silence sit for a beat. "Marisol, smart homes can be finicky. Could be a power surge, bad wiring." "Don't patronize me," she hissed. "This wasn't random." "You did this," I smiled at the empty feed, unseen. "Marisol, I was in Tucson all night, 180 miles away. How could I control the house from here?" "You could have paid someone." "What? Hired a tech crew to turn my home into a haunted maze." "That's a stretch, don't you think?" Her breathing was heavy, ragged. "This isn't over. We're not letting some glitch stop us. They're still moving in." I glanced at the feeds. The lake house, quiet, waiting. "Maybe the house doesn't like intruders," I said. Silence stretched, 8 seconds long. "I underestimated you," Marisol said finally, her voice low, tinged with something close to respect, but sharper, like she'd just realized the game had changed. "That's been known to happen." The line went dead. I set the phone down, fingers brushing the desk once. If last night was the opening act, this morning was the critique. They were shaken, their confidence fracturing, but the performance wasn't over, and the next act needed to hit harder. By 11 a.m., the lake house's foyer camera flickered to life. A gray pickup pulled into the driveway. A man stepped out, hefting a battered toolbox. Locksmith gear. I zoomed in. Marisol was with him, pointing at the door, her gestures sharp with irritation. The locksmith crouched, inspected the lock, then shook his head. The mic caught his voice. "These aren't standard locks, ma'am. Smart system, biometrics, wireless, backup power. Can't you just swap them?" Marisol pressed. "Not without rewiring the whole network. You need a home automation specialist." He snapped his toolbox shut. I allowed a faint smile. Luis Ramos was the only tech within 180 miles who knew this system, and he answered only to me. The locksmith drove off. Marisol stood on the porch, hands on hips, before stalking back to her car. The lock held. The cameras stayed live. That night, I kept the feeds open. The lake house sat dark, empty but vigilant. Monday passed without a call. Tuesday, 7:42 p.m. Tires crunched on gravel through the foyer mic. The feed showed Marisol and Javier, no parents this time, at my Tucson front door. Javier stood slightly back, arms crossed, face tight. "Open the door, Papa," Marisol called. I did. "We need to talk," she said. "Come in," I replied, stepping aside. Javier's cologne hit me first. Sandalwood, sharp, overpriced. "This stops now," Marisol said. "Turn off whatever you're doing and hand over the lake house, or—" She glanced at Javier. "Or what?" I asked, voice level. Javier spoke, low and measured. "Or you're done with us." No visits, no holidays, no grandkids down the line. Once that would have gutted me. Now it was just noise. "So, a threat," I said calmly. "It's the truth," Marisol shot back. "You're alone, Papa." Why cling to that place? I met their eyes in turn. Funny question from people trying to take it without asking. Marisol's jaw tightened. "We thought you'd be reasonable." "I am," I said. I'm keeping what's mine." Javier stepped forward. "You think you're smart?" "We'll sue. Harassment, emotional distress. We'll tell everyone what you pulled, with what proof?" I asked. His mouth worked silently for a beat. "This isn't over," Marisol said. I leaned against the doorframe. "I think it is." They left without another word. I didn't watch them go. In my study, I pulled out a notepad. Their words had given me the final piece. Tomorrow, I'd call Victor and a few others. Marisol thought this was about tech and scare tactics. She was wrong. The endgame was paper, legal, binding, permanent. The house could drive them out, but I wanted them barred for good. Wednesday morning, Tucson was overcast, the sky heavy and still. I poured black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and sat at my desk, phone in hand. My thumb paused over Victor Pina's name. I'd known Victor for 25 years. Not just a lawyer, but a man who could slam a legal door shut with precision. We'd met when Sophia and I bought our first investment property. He'd handled every deal since. When he answered, his voice was steady, sharp. "Diego, what's up?" "I need to lock down Lago Sereno," I said. "Permanently. No claims, no gaps, not from my daughter, her husband, or his family." I heard his pen scratch. "Give me the rundown." I laid it out. Marisol's porch ultimatum, Javier's threats, their parents lounging in my chairs, the system that sent them running. When I finished, Victor let out a low whistle. "You don't want to sell?" "No," I said. "But I don't want it in my name if they keep circling." "Options then," he said. "Fastest is an irrevocable trust, or gifting it to an entity you control, or donate it to a charity." I leaned back. "Mio charity? How quick?" "Pick one, and I can have papers ready in 36 hours. Once it's recorded, it's untouchable." I thought of Sophia, her voice warm as she talked about the community health clinic she volunteered at near the lake. Lago Sereno wasn't just a house. It was her vision of refuge. Maybe it could be again. "Sereno Health Collective," I said. "They've wanted land out there forever. Give it to them." Victor didn't pause. Got it. You'll still have access. Lifetime honorary rights, revocable only by you. Perfect, I said. We set a meeting for that afternoon. By 3 o'clock, I was in Victor's office, all dark wood and authority. The windows faced downtown, blinds slanted against the gray light. He pushed a stack of papers across the desk. Deed transfer, gift agreement with Sereno Health, and your access clause. I read every word, every line, every mark. Then I signed. The pen lifted, and a weight shifted. Not gone, but resettled, like the lake house had found a new, unshakable foundation. One Marisol couldn't touch. Victor gathered the papers. I'll file this with the county clerk first thing tomorrow. By Friday, it's public record. Anyone checking the deed will see Sereno Health Collective as the owner and Marisol? I asked. Victor's lips curved in a tight, knowing smile. She can hire every lawyer in Arizona. Won't change a thing. The property's out of reach. That evening, I sat in my study, the lake house's camera feed open on my laptop. The house glowed softly in the fading light, calm and untouched. At 7:38 p.m., headlights cut across the driveway. Marisol's SUV, Javier, was beside her. They moved fast, striding to the door like they owned it. Marisol jammed her key into the lock. It didn't budge. She slammed her fist against the door, shouting, "Open up!" Not papa, just a sharp demand. When no answer came, she stepped back, glaring at the house like it had betrayed her. Javier pulled out his phone, recording. "This is harassment," he said to the camera. "Unlawful eviction. We'll take this to court." I almost chuckled. The ink on the transfer was dry. The next morning, my phone rang. Marisol. "This ends now," she said. No preamble. "We're filing a lawsuit." "Marisol," I said, voice steady. "Before you waste your money, check who owns the lake house." "What are you talking about?" "It's not mine anymore." "And it's not yours, Islands." "Then, what did you do?" "I honored your mother's memory," I said. "Something you forgot how to do." Her voice climbed. "You gave it away?" "To someone who'll value it." "Check the records by Friday." Her breathing was sharp, uneven. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I'll sleep better than I have in years." The call cut off. 2 days later, the news spread fast. Sereno Health Collective posted on social media a photo of their director on the lake house porch, the lake sparkling behind her. The caption read, "Immense gratitude to Diego Velez for donating Lago Sereno to our cause. This haven will offer healing to our community for generations." Local news picked it up, then a few regional blogs. By midday, my phone buzzed with texts and calls. Not from Marisol, but from old friends, neighbors, curious acquaintances, all with congratulations or questions. When Marisol finally called, her voice was flat, almost hollow. "So that's it. You'd rather give it to strangers than your daughter." "I gave it to people who'll honor it," I said. "You broke this family." "No," I said softly. "You did that." She had nothing left to say. I ended the call, leaned back, and stared at the Tucson skyline. The lake house wasn't mine anymore, but it was safe. Sophia's sanctuary, now a refuge for others. Marisol was locked out, not by tech or tricks, but by a legal wall no lawyer could climb. Thursday morning broke clear, the Tucson sky sharp as cut crystal. I woke early, already dressed in my mind. Navy suit, crisp shirt. The tie Sophia said made my words carry weight. On the kitchen counter sat a folder. Certified copies of the deed transfer. The gift agreement to Sereno Health. My lifetime access clause. My key to a door Marisol could never open. At 10:05, I stepped into Victor Pena's office. The receptionist glanced up. "Mr. Velez, conference room A. They're waiting." "They're here." Of course, those with no ground to stand on arrive early, and the uninvited arrive angry. The room smelled of polished wood and ink. Victor sat at the head, documents aligned like a fortress. Across from him, Marisol, jaw tight. Javier, arms crossed, eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. Esteban and Luciana sat against the wall, dressed like they thought appearances could sway a judge. "Morning," I said, taking my seat beside Victor, hands folded. Marisol skipped pleasantries. "We're settling this now." Victor raised a hand. "You're here to be informed. This isn't a discussion." The words landed like a locked gate. Javier gave a sharp laugh, humorless. "We'll see." Victor slid a single sheet across the table. The county recorder's index. "See for yourself." Lago Sereno, recorded owner. Sereno Health Collective. As of yesterday, 9:47 a.m., the gift deed, compliance affidavit, and transfer tax are final. Irrevocable silence hit heavy. Marisol blinked first. "Irrevocable? People undo things all the time." "Not this," Victor said. "Irrevocable means exactly what you don't want it to." Javier leaned in, finger jabbing the paper. "You can't just give away family property. She's your daughter. We have rights." "No," Victor said, voice flat. "Arizona's not a community property state for post-retirement gifts when the title's sole and the transfer meets charitable standards. Your rights exist only in your heads, not our laws." Esteban tried for calm. "We're not here for trouble. We just need a place to live. We thought..." "You thought you could take a house that wasn't yours." I cut in. "And you told me to leave my own porch to make it happen." Luciana leaned forward, earrings swaying. "After all we've done for your daughter," she began, then faltered, sensing the room didn't care for her plea. Victor tapped another document. "Here's a no trespass and cease harassment notice for Mr. Velez and Sereno Health. Enter Lago Sereno without Diego's written permission as lifetime access holder, and it's criminal trespass. Keep up the calls, texts, or pressure, and we'll pursue remedies." Marisol scoffed. "Lifetime access?" So he gave it away, but kept it. "He donated it," Victor said, "with donor access rights, fully legal. He can stay whenever the house isn't booked for programs. You, however, have no right to enter." Marisol's mouth opened, then shut. "So he wins," she said, voice bitter. "Is that it? Drag us here to watch you gloat." Her eyes locked on mine. "You'd rather give it to strangers than your daughter." "I'd rather give it to people who know what a home means," I said. "It's not a bargaining chip, a trophy, or a weapon to use against a grieving father." A flush crept up Javier's neck. "This isn't over," he said. "We'll tell everyone what you did to us. That house." He stopped, as if the memory of that night still gripped him. Victor didn't flinch. "Tell who you want." The public record shows a man donating a lakeside retreat to a community health collective. Reporters called this morning. You might have seen the posts. Marisol glanced at Javier, her face tightening. They'd seen the articles, the likes, the comments praising the gift, none of it in their favor. Luciana's voice broke the silence, small and shaky. We didn't mean harm. We just thought, you're alone. You don't need it. I looked at her, calm but firm. I think of Sophia every time I'm there. I sit with the lake with her memory. Even if I never went back, it wouldn't make it yours. Victor fanned out the final documents. To be clear, here's the gift deed, the donative intent letter, the recorded donor access for Mr. Velez, and letters to each of you documenting today's warning. Marisol stared at the papers like they were written in code. You planned this, she said. Not from the start, I replied. But when you told me I wasn't welcome in my own home, you showed me how this would end. Javier shoved his chair back, the scrape loud in the quiet room. You've ruined our family. I've set a boundary, I said. Families survive boundaries. They die without them. Esteban stood, hands raised like he could calm a storm. Can we at least talk about a transition? Somewhere else to go? Victor slid an envelope across the table. A check from Mr. Velez to Sereno Health, marked for relocation aid for Esteban and Luciana. The collective will issue service credits through their housing partners. It won't get you a lake view, but it'll give you time. Luciana stared at the envelope, wary. We don't want his handouts. You wanted them at the lake, I said. Javier's voice strained for its usual edge but fell short. Are we done? Yes, Victor said. Unless you need another copy of the law on irrevocable transfers. Marisol flinched at the word, then turned for the door, pausing without looking back. The worst part, she said, voice low, is hearing Mama's voice telling me to be better. I thought if I pushed hard enough it'd fade. She swallowed. It hasn't. The door opened and closed. They filed out. Not a family, just 4 people tied by a failed scheme and a shared defeat. When the room cleared, Victor stacked the papers with crisp precision. Flawless execution, he said. Paper walls, I replied. They seem fragile until you hit them. He almost smiled. What now? I drive, I said. There's a place I haven't visited properly in months. The road to Lago Sereno wound through desert scrub, then pines, then that first glimpse of water that still caught my breath. I pulled into the gravel drive as the afternoon sun turned the lake to molten gold. A woman waited on the porch, hair in a neat braid, clipboard in hand. She stepped forward with a warm, professional smile. Mr. Velez, I'm Elena Torres, Program Director for Sereno Health. We shook hands. I thought we'd keep the dedication quiet, she said. You'll have your time here, and when our clients arrive, they'll have theirs. Inside, the house felt like it was waiting for its next chapter. No tech traps now. The projector's gone, speakers packed, sent back to Luis with a thank you and a bottle of tequila he'd insist he didn't deserve. The air smelled of wood polish and calm. The fight's echo faded. Elena walked the rooms with me as I pointed out where Sophia read by the window, where the light hit the kitchen in spring, how the pantry door stuck in humid summers. She jotted notes. A caretaker, not a guest. Yeah, we'll bring our first group next month, she said. 4 families, a place to heal, to rest. Good, I said. That's what this house is for. Tires crunched gravel outside. I didn't need a camera to know the sound. "Expecting someone?" Elena asked. "No," I said, "but I'm not surprised." The knock was sharp, rattling the deadbolt. I opened the door because I chose to, not because anyone had the right. Marisol stood alone, the sunlight washing her face, making her look almost like the girl she used to be. "You drove fast," I said. She glanced past me, taking in the quiet living room, the same space that had roared and whispered and chased her out. "Is it true?" she asked. "The Health Collective?" "It's true," I said. "It's done." She looked down, then back at me. "I said awful things." "You did," I agreed. She took a breath, words catching like she wanted to say sorry but couldn't shape it. "Javier, we thought if we pushed, you'd fold like you did 4 years ago," Marisol said, her voice catching. The man who traded kindness for peace. Her eyes flickered, and she took a half step back. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said, steady, "but I'm done letting you shrink me." She swallowed, nodded, and for a moment, I saw the girl who'd lose her soccer ball in the yard and looked to me to find it under the car. "What now?" she asked. Behind me, Elena cleared her throat, a gentle reminder that this house wasn't ours anymore. It belonged to a greater purpose. "Now," I said, "you go home. Figure out who you want to be beyond entitled. When you can walk into a room without scheming, call me. Until then," I nodded toward the lake. "This place has work to do." "Work," she echoed, like the word might find a place in her. She glanced past me, shook her head at something internal, and turned for her car. I watched her taillights fade down the winding road. Elena stood beside me, the quiet of two people who know victory doesn't need fanfare. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than okay." I stepped onto the porch, letting the air settle around me. I'm done apologizing to people who want what's mine. She closed her clipboard. "One more thing," she said. The board approved a plaque for the foyer, simple, just, "Given in memory of Sofia Velez. May this house be a quiet healing." "If you're okay with it." I didn't answer right away. The lake rippled, pines whispered. "She'd like that," I said. "Quiet healing." Elena smiled. "It's set then." She left me there, the trees murmuring above, the water catching light and letting it go. I walked to the dock, sat with my boots on the weathered boards, and thought about boundaries, paper walls, and the years I spent believing love meant filling a grown daughter's voids with a key. The breeze skimmed the lake. No audience, no performance. Just a man who'd given away a house to keep the part of himself that built it. Back at the porch, my phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. "I'll call when I'm ready to talk like a daughter." I didn't reply. Some messages answer themselves in the life you choose. I opened the door with my key, stepped into a house that could never be weaponized against me again, and closed it with a sound that wasn't triumph or finality, just something solid, irrevocable. The first snow came early, defying the forecast. Tucson might cling to mild days into December, but Lago Sereno followed its own seasons. I drove up that morning with a thermos of coffee, a folder of old photos, and no real agenda. The sky was slate gray, the lake no longer glass but iron, unyielding. Elena had left a note on the counter. 4 families arrive Friday. 2 are trauma survivors. One's a mother and daughter, both veterans, trying to reconnect after years. She signed it with an ikachno, and a quick underline. Her restraint even in ink. The house's silence had changed. Before it was guarded, braced for the next claim. Now it was open, breathing freely. Even the pine floors, once creaky at night, seemed to sigh with ease. I poured coffee into a chipped mug Sophia had loved, a flea market find, kept for how it fit her hand. At the dock, the cold bit through the boards, sharp but honest. Across the lake, smoke curled from a distant chimney, faint against snow-dusted pines. I thought of Marisol's last visit, her search for something she couldn't name. 7 weeks had passed since Victor's office, and her single text, "I'll call when I'm ready," was all I'd heard. I didn't expect more. Readiness moves like spring. You can't rush it by watching. Still, I kept my phone on during these trips, not waiting, but open to the quiet dialogue of absence. Gravel crunched behind me. I turned, expecting Elena, but it was a battered Jeep, paint faded from desert sun. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the careful gait of someone unaccustomed to uninvited visits. His jacket was worn, hair streaked with early gray. "Velez?" he called. "That's me," I said, staying on the dock. "I'm Mateo Cruz, served with a guy, Juan Salazar. He said this place is for us, vets like us. You're the donor." I nodded. "Met Salazar at a VA clinic last year. He talked about the lake. Said it was the only place he could breathe without walls pressing in." Mateo's voice was plain, like he was stating a fact, not a feeling. "Wanted to see it before the groups come." I gestured to the dock. "You're seeing it." He joined me, boots soft on the wood, eyes on the water. "Ever notice how still water tricks you? Looks like you could walk on it, then it pulls you under." "I've noticed," I said. He nodded. "Guess that's why this place works. You stand here, know it's deep, and still feel steady." We stood in silence, a pair of ducks carving a slow path across the lake. "You lost someone here?" he asked. "Not here," I said. "But this was hers. After she was gone, people I trusted tried to take it." He didn't press for more. Soldiers don't. "Well," he said, "it's ours now, and we won't waste it." His Jeep's gravel crunch faded fast, like the lake absorbed it. I went inside, set the mug in the sink, and lingered at the door, eyes on the wood. By late afternoon, snow dusted the ground. I lit the fireplace, not for warmth, but because winter light belongs to flame, as summer belongs to water. Then came another crunch of tires. This time, I knew the engine's hum before it stopped. Marisol's SUV idled briefly, just long enough for me to wonder if she'd turn back, but she didn't. She climbed the porch steps slowly, hands tucked into her jacket, eyes tracing the wood grain like it might steady her. "I brought coffee," she said, holding up a cardboard carrier with 2 cups. "Not sure if you still drink it this late." "Depends on who's sharing," I replied. We sat in the living room, the fire casting a soft rhythm in the air. She didn't jump to apologies, and that felt like a quiet kind of respect. "I've been thinking," she started, "about what you said. Boundaries, families surviving them or breaking without them." I waited, letting her find her words. "I told Javier I needed time. He said time's just a polite way of saying goodbye, so I guess I said goodbye. I'm in a rental now. In my head, I gave you the lake house back 100 times. Doesn't make it mine." She stared at the fire, searching for the rest of her thought. I came because I don't want to be the person who only calls when she wants something. And I'm not here to undo what you did. I'm not the fire snapped, filling a long pause. I'm sorry, she said, for how I spoke to you, for thinking Mama's voice would quiet if I pushed hard enough. It's louder now, and I'm trying to hear it. I didn't answer right away. Apologies need time to root, not prodding to see if they'll hold. I poured the coffee into two of Sophia's old mugs, one with a faded cactus print she'd loved, and slid one to her. If you want to visit sometime when it's not booked, talk to Elena. It's her schedule now. Her brows lifted at the formality, but she nodded. Fair. We talked for another half hour. Her job, the rental's finicky thermostat, small things that couldn't be twisted later. At the door, she paused. You look steadier than last time. I am, I said. She left without a hug, without a promise to call, and that was enough. Some bridges don't need ceremonies to hold. They just need the fires to stop. The snow fell harder that night, tapping the windows like soft reminders. I stayed 2 more days, long enough to see the first group arrive. Elena met them in the driveway. No fanfare, just warm handshakes and a welcome that said everything needed. From the dock, I watched them explore, shoulders easing, boots crunching snow. A woman lingered by the water, like Mateo had, staring out. I left her to it. Later, as laughter rose from the main room, tentative, then strong, I realized something. The lake house wasn't mine anymore, not like it had been. And that was the point. I locked up that night, knowing Marisol might return one day, or she might not. Both could coexist in this winter without pulling each other apart. Driving back to Tucson, the lake shrank in the rear view, silver under the morning sun. Some places you hold, some you let go, and if you're lucky, some teach you the difference.